Nick Newman's addiction takes a terrifying turn as his deepest fears come alive in a disturbing black and white nightmare, forcing him to confront just how much his drug use could destroy everything and everyone he loves. The nightmare begins at the Newman Ranch, where Nick suddenly finds himself surrounded by familiar faces. But something is horribly wrong. Chelsea is devastated, and Nick soon learns the unthinkable. Connor is dead. In this nightmare, Connor got into Nick's stash of fentanyl, and the consequences were fatal. Adam is overwhelmed with grief and anger as he tells Nick that their son is dead because of what happened. Nick immediately refuses to accept it. He insists that he has always been careful with the drugs, especially because Christian is around. Nick wants to believe there is no possible way Connor could have gotten access to his fentanyl, but then he checks his pockets. The fentanyl is gone. The realization changes everything. Adam looks at Nick and barely recognizes the man standing in front of him. Nick was once someone his family could depend on, a man who often tried to protect the people closest to him. Now, in this nightmare, his addiction has transformed him into someone capable of putting a child in danger. Adam cannot understand how Nick managed to fall so far so quickly. Nick desperately asks what he can do to fix the situation, but Adam's response is devastating. Nothing can bring Connor back. Nick cannot reverse what happened, and there is no way to erase the consequences of his addiction. Then, the nightmare becomes even more personal. Adam and Chelsea announce that they are taking Christian away from Nick. Nick is stunned and doesn't understand how they could possibly do that. Adam reminds everyone that Christian is biologically his son, and in the twisted logic of Nick's nightmare, Adam believes he should take Christian and protect him from Nick's drug-addicted lifestyle. For Nick, this is another crushing blow. He isn't simply losing the trust of his family. He is facing the possibility of losing his son because of his addiction. Then, Matt appears. Instead of condemning Nick, Matt casually suggests that everyone should give him a break because accidents happen, but Nick immediately turns his anger toward Matt and insists that everything happening is somehow Matt's fault. Chelsea refuses to let Nick escape responsibility. She makes it clear that the blame belongs to Nick. Nick's choices brought him here. Overwhelmed by everything happening around him, Nick says he needs some air. Adam delivers one final emotional blow by telling Nick they never want to see him again. The nightmare then shifts to crimson lights. Nick is looking for Cassie, but the familiar coffee house has been transformed into something dark and disturbing. Instead of the warm gathering place Genoa City residents know, Crimson Lights looks like a drug den. People are unconscious or visibly high, creating another frightening reflection of the world Nick fears his addiction could create. Nick continues searching for Cassie, but temptation quickly finds him. A drug dealer at the bar offers Nick drugs. At first, Nick resists. He refuses more than once, showing that some part of him still understands what he is risking. But addiction continues pulling at him. Eventually, Nick begins moving toward the dealer. His resistance weakens, and he reaches for the bag of drugs. Just before he can take it, Nikki appears. She immediately knocks his hand away. Then Nick is forced to face another painful consequence of his behavior, as Nikki tells her son that he is breaking her heart. Her words cut deeper than any accusation. The nightmare has already shown Nick the possible death of Connor, the loss of Christian, Adam and Chelsea turning against him, and a world consumed by drugs. Now his own mother is standing in front of him, devastated by what he has become. Every part of the nightmare appears designed to confront Nick with the same terrifying message. His addiction is no longer affecting only him. It threatens his children, his family, his relationships, and everything he has spent years building. The black and white setting makes Nick's nightmare feel even more unsettling as his fears unfold one after another. Connor's imagined death represents the most horrifying consequence possible, while Adam's threat to take Christian forces Nick to confront what could happen if his family decides he is no longer capable of protecting his own child. Even Crimson Lights becomes a warning. A place filled with memories and familiar faces is transformed into a disturbing symbol of addiction, showing Nick just how dark his world could become if he continues down this path. And Nikki stopping him from taking the drugs may represent one of the last connections still trying to pull him back. Nick's nightmare is brutal, emotional, and deeply personal. But beneath all the horror is a warning he can no longer ignore. If Nick continues allowing addiction to control his life, the things he fears losing most may eventually become the very things he can no longer protect.